The women's movement began on July of 1848. The first women's conference was held in Seneca Falls, New York, in July 19th and 20th of 1848, and 100 people attended, 2/3 being women. The goal of that conference was to achieve sacred right of franchise. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was an activist that wrote the Declaration of Sentiments based on the Declaration of Independence, and it focused on enumerated areas of life where women were treated unjustly. One of the phrases read, "All men and women are created equally." The first Women's Rights Convention focused on the discussion of the Declaration of Sentiments and passing some resolutions. A resolution that wasn't passed was women's enfranchisement. Women's rights conventions were held regularly from 1850 to the start of the Civil War. Some of the goals of the women's movement were guardianship of infants, property rights, divorce, access to higher education, medical professions, equal pay, the right to vote, the right to work and have jobs that men could only have, and protective legislation for women workers, which women are still campaigning for today. In 1920, women gained their right to vote after the 19th Amendment was added to the Constitution. Women faced some barriers limiting their rights, such as family responsibilities, lack of educational and economic opportunities, absence of a voice in political debates, and others. In the 1940s and 1950s, women began to enter the employment market. In the 1960s and 70s, there was a demand for the right to abortion and free child care and equal pay. Nowadays, women have almost equal rights on men, but they're still fighting for some rights.
Alright, some of the leaders from the women's movement involved Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, which fought for voting rights for women by means of congressional amendments to the Constitution. Another one involved Lucy Stone, which also fought for voting rights for women, and Alice Paul and Lucy Burns, who worked together towards the passage of federal amendments to give women the right to vote, and also are founders of the National Women's Party, and Margaret Sanger, who opened up the first birth control clinic, which gave women the right to choose. Other women activists also involve Rosa Parks, which we all know helped with the boycott, and she was also known as the First Lady of the Civil Rights or the Mother of the Freedom Movement. And Dorothy Heights, which focused on issues of African American women who helped with unemployment or voting rights, and Margaret Wright Edelman, which fought for rights of children and is also the president and founder of the Children Defense Fund, and Dolores Huerta, who fought with Cesar Chavez and is the co-founder of the National Farm Workers Association, or the United Farm Workers.
Some of the federal legislation passed for women's rights was the 19th Amendment in 1920, allowing women the right to vote, and the Shepard-Towner Act of 1921, expanding maternity care, which was one of the first laws appealing to the female vote. Some Supreme Court cases during this time were Mueller v. Oregon, when women were allowed to work longer days, and then another one was the Adkins v. Children's Hospital, which allowed women to be paid higher than minimum wage. Other Supreme Court cases, such as Reed v. Reed, which allowed women to not be preferred less than men, and U.S. v. Virginia, which gave women the right to join the military. And another big Supreme Court case was Roe v. Wade, which gave women the right to choose.
Some current issues that women's movement still face is women don't get paid as much as men, and being fairly and properly represented in the media. And so far we have not had a woman be our president, but that might change. Occupational sex segregation, pregnancy discrimination at work. In the U.S. Constitution, it does not guarantee equal rights for women either. And the continuing efforts of whittle down Roe v. Wade and women's reproductive rights.